Hello, hello, and welcome. Hey guys, Naveen, Shivai. Boy, Naveen, Shivai, it feels like we really haven't talked this week. You know, I'm not really sure what you guys are up to. Boy, while we're getting settled in and we're waiting for other people to join, I'll say yesterday was a pretty long day. So 4 a.m. to 1 a.m. for me. That's what happens when you're not ready to deliver an O'Reilly live training. So good. Okay. While we're waiting, link to the meeting minutes. And while we're waiting, some housekeeping items. Subham, good question about the training. Actually, we'll talk about it here in just a bit. Housekeeping items. Those that have been here before are aware that that we record these meetings, that we post them publicly. That this is an open source effort, and as such, we try to be as transparent as possible. And so, you use swear words at your own risk, I guess. Things that your mother would approve of. All right, the other housekeeping item is, if you don't have access to the meeting minutes, please just request it. If you do, please jump on in and help take notes. Otherwise, we will miss somebody or forget something. Okay, good. 3 minutes after, maybe one more minute. There's a number of people who end up joining about 10-15 minutes after the call has started. And it's unfortunate because some of those individuals are the ones that benefit the most from the first part of the meeting, which is the announcements. So we'll see. So we've got a quick roll call. So we've got Vijay, Sharakuri, Shubham, Anand, Simon, Emmanuel, Kapoor, Kush. I'm missing people. Shivai, Naveen. I'll let you guys. I guess I'll let you guys take notes. But good. So all right. Hey, we're 4 minutes after. It's what, April 10th. Hard to tell when you're staying up as late as I did yesterday. But welcome to today's community meeting. We're graced with the presence of Emmanuel. I think this might be your first time on the community call. As a rite of passage, you are immediately and awkwardly put on the spot to say, welcome. Thank you very much for being here. Very nice to have you. I've gotten a little bit acquainted with and familiar with Emmanuel, although I don't know that everyone else is. And so here's the awkward part. Emmanuel, if you're in a position to talk and introduce yourself, that would be great to get to know you.
So hello, I'm Emmanuel. I'm in Norway now, and I'm a system administrator, so DevOps, and mainly I work with the Google Cloud, AWS, and container. So if I can contribute in some way to the project, I'm here.
That's fantastic. Emmanuel, very nice to have you. We're going to have to think of some moniker. I'm not sure if it's DevOps Master, DevOps Ninja. There's some there's something that goes with that. But we're actually, I think, have a bit of a continuous integration, GitHub Actions kind of workflow discussion today that might be of interest. So,
okay.
Yeah, so fantastic to have you. Please do please do meet the rest of the folks here. Most of these folks are regulars, all except for Adina. Adina, very.
Hello. Hello. Sorry for missing so much, but I was just postponing on starting it, and now I don't want to postpone anything anymore. So
Yeah. There's no better time.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, very good. Well, so Adina, we just got done introducing Emmanuel, who's first time on the community meeting, and we're telling him that everyone has to go through an awkward moment of introducing themselves so that folks in the community can get to know you.
Okay. Do you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so my name is Adina. I'm Romanian, working and living in Austria. In Vienna. I'm a traveler, and now I'm isolated at home for more than 1 month. Kind of hard. I'm interested in everything related to the DevOps, most of it for building faster the application and offering some tools for developers also. Currently, I'm supporting PHP projects, all kind of frameworks, and yeah, PHP and Angular projects. So most of it web, a little bit combined with some microservices written since ages in C++, but that's an old story. I love people and meeting people, and that's I don't know. That's kind of it.
Yeah, I can vouch for that last part. Adina is quite a pleasant individual. Actually, Adina, is there? Do you still hold something of a Docker community leader?
Yes, I'm still holding the Docker meetups in Romania, in Timișoara and Brașov. Also had plans for Vienna, but I was a lazy person. I will be a lazy less, and I will hold them once this pandemic stuff is out.
Yeah.
But maybe also online thing will be helpful.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that later.
Yeah,
as well.
I heard about the Git Actions. Yes, GitHub Actions.
Oh yeah.
Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, I don't know how to present myself and so on.
Yeah, very good. Excellent. Yes.
Anything I can contribute and so on. I don't have too much community things going on, and it was on purpose in order to know what I want to focus on and so on. So it will be like container stuff, mostly meshes,
yeah,
and and DevOps stuff. Yes, that's it.
nice.
But DevOps, I'm not good on. That's it. I said it's good. That's it.
No, very good. You will. Well, I think two things. One, there's much containers. There's much Docker, much Kubernetes, and much meshy things here. So you're likely to find a nice foothold, which is great. Plus, there's a bunch of nice folks that are in the community. It's really kind of neat. And then also, I think you have to be careful when you say that you might have some time or you might want to contribute, because there's some of us, our ears pick up on that. So
Yes. So bring it. Yeah, it's okay. It's good. Yeah. I'm having a hard time on being useful in the last couple of 4 months and so on. Dedicated too much time for myself, I think. And with this pandemic, I realized that, yeah, so I'm open. So don't worry.
Oh, that's
If
awesome.
I consider it's too much, I might complain, but first give it a try.
Yeah, it's awesome. Actually, another reason that yeah, I don't know. Nipur was just complaining to me this week about the lack of other, just how many little boys there are in this little boys club. This is really nice because she's the only one that's been tough enough to stick it out. So good. Okay.
Yeah, so you have so many so great stuff in Meshery and so on, and a lot of things are still building up, so it's hard to keep up. So community is the way to learn and so on. Not saying having a job is not good and so on, but so many restrictions and things like that it's you actually you grow more with the community, I would say. So yeah, that's my interest. I'm always having an interest. So
there's well, I think you'll find actually the kind of one of the first topics is related to that. I think you'll find there's a number of all of us here are absolutely learning, but there's a number of others, or all of us are at various walks in our path. Some of them, like Luke Juggery, another Docker captain, he sends his regrets today, but Luke was interested in deploying Meshery to Raspberry Pis. So Luke me saying next week working on mission that we're building binaries, and then he's going to try to do it. And then I'm going to go into other announcements.
Yeah, don't worry about me. I'm pretty adaptable and so on. I'm just happy I took the courage and get in. I only have one question. Is the other one for the contributing still on Tuesday, every Tuesday, or?
It is we ended up bumping it to Wednesdays, but yep, every Wednesdays.
Every Wednesday, okay. Yeah, it's good that Google somehow kept the appointment and still give me the notification. So it's Wednesday, and this one is always on Friday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good. Okay. Well then, hey, a few.
I don't need to make breaks for me and so on. I will adapt and so on.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the welcoming.
I'm tickled that you're here. I seriously am. Well then, there's a few.
Just to see my happy face and my chaotic arrangement in the house. Yes, but yeah. I'm really, really happy and happy to see you and hear you.
If this makes you feel any better, I'll just throw some stuff around and just there.
Perfect. Excellent. Thanks.
All kinds of work braces, so we can.
Yeah, I don't want to show the rest of the room. It's so chaotic. Okay.
Fair enough. Well, there are a few announcements in general for the for all of us here. So we'll kind of get going with the meeting. Asuko is also on the call, which just what a fantastic Friday this is. This is great. So announcements. A few of them here. One is that yesterday was delivered the introduction to Istio, so live training. I'm assuming that this is being shared. So the reason I'm sharing this is to say that there are 3 individuals on this call that made the delivery of this training yesterday not a complete disaster. And so I wanted to take a moment to thank Shivai, Naveen, and Kanishkar for having spent time trying to make sure that the workshops and the labs that we were delivering yesterday worked. I was complaining about having to stay up really late to make sure that things were working, and then I realized just how late Naveen and Shivai were up as well. So thank you guys. It was very helpful. Actually, many of you that are on the call can see the works of what the works of that workshop. Just in Slack yesterday, I think there were 25 new people that joined Slack, and so that's great. They joined because they're students studying service meshes and part of this workshop. There are a number of you. I wasn't kidding earlier when I said, "Hey, we're all here learning." I certainly include myself in that, very much so. The workshop and the labs here, these are open to community members. And so if you consider that you would benefit from walking through the labs, just signal. There are a bunch of community members already that know where those labs are, and they can point them out to you. So, next topic was a minor, well, what is it? Not even technically not a minor release, but like a patch release was done yesterday, somewhat quickly, to try to incorporate support for Scoop. And if you're not familiar, and I'm not, Scoop is a package management system for Windows. I think, in so much as I understand, it's just been about a decade since I've touched Windows, so it's kind of Scoop and Chocolatey, I think, are popular packaging frameworks for Windows, and we chose Scoop as the one to initially support for creating Meshery's excuse me. For creating mesheryctl packages. Thank you very much, Kush, for leading that effort and creating documentation at the same time. There's just kind of an outstanding ask here for anyone that's interested in testing those Scoop packages. If anyone's running Windows and would like to see if the Meshery CLI, mesheryctl, can install through Scoop and work, is that of interest to anyone? And while people digest that, I'll keep moving on, but yep, and I think Scoop is a Windows-only deal. But folks, feel free to give it a test. We'll want to make sure that it's that it works before we make any loud announcements about it. So next was, I'm not sure if Kanishkar's on the call today. He may not be. He's has a medical issue, and unfortunately, he and his family are sheltering in place and not able to go get some medicine, and so that's preventing him from being online right now. I think he's okay. He's going to be okay, but yeah. So point of talking about Kanishkar is because he and I had lodged a potential talk for DockerCon, and there's interest in that talk, and more than that, there's interest in holding a panel on service meshes with the Cube. If anyone's familiar with the Cube, I think it's the Silicon Angle. They have this Cube interview series, and so I don't know. With any luck, we might be able to get Kanishkar on that as well. That would be really neat. So, again, moving through the announcements. Yesterday, this is something of a personal note, but not entirely, because I really consider that all of the things that I'm doing, where my plate is spilling over, truly, are opportunities for anyone else to step in and participate. So yesterday, my O'Reilly editor had asked for and approved a book on service mesh patterns, of which I'm committed to the idea that this is the right thing to do, to put out another one, and in general about best practices and patterns of running service meshes. And other than that, I am entirely unenthused by the thought of committing to a couple hundred more pages, or to a new book. And so if that strikes a chord with anyone, if that's something that folks want to discuss or talk about, ping me, because most of these things I can't keep up with. Those that have been in the community for a little while are familiar with the notion that we've got, that there's a partnership with HashiCorp, between Layer5 and HashiCorp. And I've shared some of these slides, I think, with a number of you. I'll try to do that after I'm done talking. I'll try to put a link to these slides or what have you. It sort of outlines what the goals are, and some specifics about what we're trying to accomplish, a bunch of specifics. One of the really nice things about this partnership is that some of you are familiar with Nick Jackson who has been active in the community for some time, in the Meshery, the Layer5 community for some time. He's coming back to help engage for the short term and see if we can't get at least one or more console engineers engaged. So I'm excited about that. Part of that partnership means that we'll be doing some things publicly. So we've got a webinar tentatively slated for the 23rd of April. Speaking of meetups and kind of virtual meetups, that there are 2 meetups in Austin that I organize. One of them is the CNCF meetup, so it's Cloud Native Austin. The other one is Docker Austin, and so it's sponsored by Docker. We're going to go forth with our first virtual meetup this coming Thursday. It just so happens that Meshery, there's 2 topics for that meetup. One of them is Meshery. The other one is Kudo. If you haven't heard of Kudo before, it's both Meshery and Kudo actually are proposed for entrance into CNCF Sandbox. Kudo is stewarded by D2IQ, formerly known as Mesosphere. And so we need to update the details. However, since we will be holding this and we will be holding it virtually, if either 2, I would encourage all of you to register and attend, I guess is the thing. Suppose that hadn't really occurred to me before, because normally those are just kind of kept to Austin. Or attend maybe Adina to see how not to do a virtual meetup. Next topic, quickly, is a Google Summer of Code. Is something that Layer5 participates in. And the community had come up with a number of ideas, some of which were really rather specific to Meshery. Some of them were inclusive of other CNCF projects. 2 of them garnered 3 proposals apiece, and those 2 were distributed load testing of service meshes, focused around service meshes that are using Envoy as their data plane. So there's 3 proposals sitting out there to work on this project. And then there are 3 proposals sitting out there to work on this project about service mesh interface and Meshery being a conformance tool for service mesh interface. Again, mostly for the benefit of those that either haven't seen this in the past, that SMI, or service mesh interface, is sort of a lowest common denominator API behind which different service meshes can plug in. And Meshery and Layer5 were launch partners with this initiative last KubeCon EU. So not the one that we just missed, but the one that was a year ago in Barcelona. And just 2 weeks ago, this Friday, I approved SMI's entrance into the CNCF Sandbox. And so it's there now. Actually, later today, today's the 10th, later today, there's a CNCF webinar on kind of introducing SMI. So actually, for those that have made some of you that made these proposals are here in this community, remind me on this call to get you a link to that CNCF webinar. It might be of interest to you to just get you more introduced to what SMI is. All right, last announcement briefly, that is that when I say that I approved SMI's entrance into the CNCF, I say that with my CNCF hat on. That hat is worn in context of SIG network. There's a Kubernetes SIG network. There's also a CNCF SIG network. That CNCF SIG network is home base, if you will, or like home room, if you will, for Linkerd, Envoy, gRPC, NATS, Core DNS, the network and traffic related projects within the CNCF. The next meeting that we have is this coming Thursday. Chaos Mesh will be presented. It's proposed for us as a sandbox project. A number of you will remember that, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, there were maintainers of Chaos Mesh on this call, and they gave a quick introduction to what that project is about. I will say, understanding that most of you are probably not familiar with the project, as a brief introduction, we've also had Litmus Chaos, I think is it what it's called, representatives on this call demoing Litmus Chaos. They're both really just frameworks for creating and executing experiments. The name Chaos Mesh sounds a bit more meshy than it necessarily is. It's a bit more of a general framework for experimentation in a Kubernetes-centric way. But because of the mental association I think that people have with mesh in the name, and because they do have some network-centric experiments to run, some network-centric chaos to create, that they're going to come through this SIG. And actually, since they came onto this call to present, and they did that in context of a very early initiative that this community had, and it was for a Meshery monkey. So here's another open opportunity for people who might be interested in this topic. There's just kind of an outstanding desire for there to be chaos capabilities inside of Meshery or in a project adjacent to Meshery. The discussion that we'd had with the Chaos Mesh team was to potentially ingest Chaos Mesh in Meshery and then facilitate the running of experiments from within Meshery. Network-centric and service mesh-centric experiments. So I know that struck a chord with a couple of people who I don't think are on the call right now previously. That's not really going anywhere at the moment. So that's open to everyone. Okay, great. End of announcements. Hopefully end of everyone having to listen to me. We've got a few different topics to go through, maybe some demos. And the first one up is Shivai. And yeah.
So should I just share the documentation, or what exactly should I share with you? Because like just the release notes if you want.
Maybe all of the above, or yeah, whatever you feel. Yeah, if you have a draft of what the release notes look like, that would be great.
Yeah, just a minute. I'm making it live. Just a minute.
So while Shivai brings this up for context, we've had a release of Meshery to make for a couple of weeks now, and kind of the longer that we wait, the bigger the release gets, which isn't a bad thing. But we're just a little overdue to make the release. Part of making that release, thankfully Shivai is focused on it, and part of that means that hopefully we'll have some better release process in place. I think all in all, we've got like 44 releases of the project so far, many of which are rather small.
Yeah, is it sharing?
I don't see it. By the way, was I sharing this whole time or not sharing?
I guess now it should be presenting.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so this is a basic idea behind it. So basically what I did was that even for Meshery, we had some features, some docs, some UI related releases on the pull request that were accepted. So earlier this was not the case, that we were just having some bullet points regarding Meshery and then some regarding the various adapters. So I just thought that it will be better for us to provide exact pull requests that were accepted, and then having different set of release notes for the features, for docs, and for the UI improvements, and then also having separate ones for the different adapters that we have. So during this currently, so far we had these changes in linker, SKU, and console, and like any others that can be added will be just added. So I'm just finishing up with the blog post that needs to go with this, that also has like in-depth update regarding each one of these, and then I'll be sharing that with Lee. So this way, and I had also proposed that since like a lot of the all of the websites, they have the release notes within the website itself, so we can have a separate page for the release notes in that we can have a separate column for all the previous releases, and the current release can be shown in terms of the on the website itself, like it's being shown on the GitHub release notes. So the people don't necessarily need to go to the documentation to see the release notes, or to the GitHub repo slash releases slash whatever current release that we have. So it can be there on the main Meshery website as well.
Nice. Very good. And then it's been sort of a long outstanding issue to tackle about automating those release notes a little bit. And so
regarding automating the release notes, can we use the release drafter? Like the notes which Shiva has prepared for the release notes, such things can easily be done by release drafter if we just categorize the pull request into correct labels.
Yeah,
Like
that is
if
what I had spoken to Lee about, that, right now there are some other repos that are having these, appropriate tags that we are using. For example, even in the linkered repository, we're using that tags. So right now, some people, they put, so for example, if it's related to UI, they're putting it in the brackets and saying UI, but a lot of them are just having general, pull requests, but they're not having the tags with attached to them, at least in the Meshery repository.
one thing that's encouraging about the consideration of the use of something like release drafter is, well, frankly, is the behavior that Naveen and Kush have begun, and that is to really organize the open issues that we have. Asuko has been leading in this way as well, about sort of structuring the labels that are used in between the GitHub repos a bit better, being a bit more consistent, trying to kind of clean up all the outstanding issues. That gives some hope that a tool like a release drafter could potentially be.
And yeah, it can also be added to the organization project, like those issues that are created while reviewing them, we can add, and they can automatically move. Like automation is already there, so they will automatically move to their respective column.
And Shivani, in part, I was pleased when Simon joined the call earlier. Part of our discussion was about the potential use of a workflow or incorporation of maybe some of the, well, I guess this is a workflow, release drafter. Okay.
Yeah, so I've spoken to Simon, and I had discussion whether if we can use GitHub Actions or some other workflow. So he said that he'll just get back to me in a few days.
Nice.
For that.
Nice.
we will have just one problem with release after that. We need to label PRs. Like if it's a documentation PR, we need to have document label upon it. If it is an PR related to UI or adapter, we need to have appropriate label on it. So for this, we can either design a custom bot or we can use a third-party bot, whichever community agrees upon.
That's actually maybe a topic to chat on for just a moment about bots. There have been a couple that have been suggested. One of them is a welcome bot. Another one is a stale bot. Another one is a triage bot. Another one is no, I'm just kidding. Well, actually, no, there is one other one, and actually Simon just said it as well, and it's essentially a custom bot. Kush was educating me earlier this week that, hey, those aren't necessarily that difficult to create, custom bots. There are, and so there's a repository that acts as something of a sandbox within the Layer5 IO org, the GitHub org. that sandbox is the Meshery-temp. Within there, a couple of these bots have been turned on. So those that aren't familiar with the capabilities or the behavior of some of these bots, you can see them in action in this sandbox. So everyone here is welcome to do essentially anything they want to do in that repository. And if you don't have the permissions to do it, we'll make sure that you do. So that you can test some of these things out. And I think, I don't know if Ashish is on the phone, but he had been the one kind of testing out and configuring the initial welcome bot. Its behavior seemed like, seemed good, seemed celebratory of someone's first contribution, their first issue, their first PR. And I wondered, if before, well, one, if there was general opinion or if anyone had opinion about the use of a welcome bot. The only negative of that I could think of was whether or not contributors would perceive it as disingenuous, that there's a bot saying thank you and celebrating it rather than a person. But I don't know that people would feel that way. They might be happy. And so if those that do have opinions and things and want to try out some of these bots, please do over in that sandbox repo. I guess before we move off of the release drafter / the release documentation automation, does someone want to kind of reiterate next steps there? I think we all know what happens when people don't say anything. Then I end up assigning something. So it sounds like this week you'll put some thought toward what might work well in terms of ensuring that we're automating the release notes, part of the change log. And either the Wednesday dev call or next week at the community call. Not hearing anything. Simon, is that all right?
Yes, and hear me?
Just barely, but yep.
Yeah, I just want to say that I am just thinking about what other repos are doing for that release after. So right now, when I look at the GitHub Actions implementation for that, we have kind of a two implementation. One is called JavaScript based or TypeScript based, and one is called Docker Action. It's a Docker Action based. So JavaScript actions are kind of a very fast because you don't have a round trip for that. But in the Docker actions, you have a flexibility. You incorporate every boundaries and each individual things inside of a Docker image. So that's a very good way we can do for, and people are also using that Docker actions for release drafter. I think I recently got through some of the companies that they are doing the same way. But one problem is that they are basically slow, because you have to go down the pull the Docker images for that, and then the other things happening. So that's kind of a very slow. And JavaScript based are basically fast, but we have to do a lot of things yourself. So I think in the members here, they are doing that. So we can look at what are their capabilities are. If they are familiar with the JavaScript base, they have to do some kind of own work on their behalf. So I think these kind of initial thing we could recommend. We definitely take a look on the other implementation as well, because this is a very modernized way of making the release software.
I am withholding opinion, or thanks for that. That I see how, yeah, I see what you're saying. One thing that I don't know is necessarily evident to everyone, and wasn't necessarily as evident to me, is that I want to show this, is that you can have multiple workflows defined per repository. I guess in some respects that's self-evident, but when you go look at those, the execution of those actions, I'm sorry, not the actions, but the workflows, is that potentially breaking down workflows into smaller segments might be helpful. I think I've seen us sort of take the initial workflow and kind of build on it and build on it and sort of build on it again. And after a while, it does start to take a number of minutes. And so, yeah, if a release drafter or whatever mechanism that we use to track change logs, if that was an independent one, that might be nice, because so we can invoke these only as necessary. One of the things, as an example, that will happen today is that within the Meshery repository, there are intentionally kind of three components that could potentially be broken out into three individual repos. One of those components is the Meshery documentation, and that's a Jekyll-based site that's stored under docs. Another component, and we've talked about this in the past, but another component is mesheryctl. It's compiles to a single static binary. It could be its own repo as well. And then the rest is sort of Meshery itself. There's logic and reasoning behind why we have these three in one repo. I won't regurgitate that now, but I'm highlighting it in context of the discussion around actions and workflows, is that today, to build, if you've only made a change to the documentation, that doesn't matter. All of Meshery will be built anyway. And so a little bit of diligence about breaking these down, I think, will help keep them executing quickly and keep the open source project on the right side of GitHub's monthly limits in terms of number of actions that can be invoked. Nice.
Actually,
Adina, I love it.
I just have a question for that. I think some of the things that we have to go be done that natively. So a lot of people are thinking about they have to doing DevOps kind of a workflow in different environments. Some of the work they are using in Azure DevOps, and some of them they are using in the GitHub Actions. So they have kind of a same workflow, but they have doing in two different things. So and people are thinking that the best practice is that you leverage the one platform to enable most kind of a thing. So if we are using GitHub and GitHub providers as the GitHub Actions there, so we can go for natively for that tool as well. So it's kind of a central replace where every contributor thinks that they have the GitHub Actions there. They don't have to go and learning different platform to understand that. So I think most of the things that we could do in the future in using the GitHub platform itself, like their GitHub Actions and other kind of things that we can do as well. So I think it's GitHub. When you're talking about the GitHub action, then there's a conversation between the different community members as well. So because GitHub action are customizable, most of the things that we do not have in the marketplace here. So we could do programmatically our own self. So it's more kind of a thing that's our community members, and they have a most kind of a programming background, so they can do some things on behalf if they doesn't find it in the marketplace. So I think we could do have a lot of conversation on that, and I think the one best practice that I think about some other DevOps people are considering, that if you are going natively, if doesn't do DevOps places in three different things instead of going to the one central place, in doing that.
I'm not sure that I have much to add there, other than kind of a head nod. Your voice is actually really low, and so it makes part of hearing it a bit hard. But it sounds like, at least for my part, what I'm taking away is that there are a couple of folks' names to associate with thoughts and efforts to improve here. Yours, Adina's, Shivai. I'm going to try to steal you away from this if I can, to go do some things in the UI.
Yeah, sure.
And then I know, Simon, you're familiar already with the notion that there's some forethought given to a number of these considerations overarchingly. And Adina, this document is a good, well, it's a good overview of how what the various components and artifacts of Meshery, how they're being built.
Yeah, perfect.
One thing.
So it will take. Not sure if I will make it fast. It doesn't look so complicated for me to take this only two things out from a repository and from a build workflow. But I will see. I'm not sure about my experience with GitHub workflows, but I have with others with other tools, with other much worse. So I think I can. If not, I will tackle the guys. I will tackle you and others. So
Nice.
okay, but thanks for the document. Yes, good.
Okay. I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity to say that there's been a long-standing unaddressed issue within Meshery specifically, as related to its build and release strategy. And at the point by which Meshery has garnered as much use and attention and contribution as it has, it's a little bit awkward that we're kind of still in this situation, or at least I feel like it's awkward. And that is the notion that while we do have consistent releases, the project does, and we do have, and we use semantic versioning, and there's much structure built around the way that the project works. There's much more to come in terms of governance and people and roles and a contributor ladder and various things like that. But with respect to building and releasing, there's just a single release channel for the project right now and for each of the components. And by release channel, I mean, there isn't, people don't, and this is very familiar, I think, to all of you, but there isn't the ability to maybe borrow an example from Docker, to go download the Edge release for Meshery, the beta release, if you will, or subscribe to the stable channel. So there's a single channel, and really, and right now, the way that part of this works is when a pull request is merged into the master branch in the Meshery repo, build automation takes place and pushes new images to GitHub. If a user is actively running Meshery, it will just be a matter of time before Meshery automatically updates itself. So there's a component within Meshery that reaches out and checks for new image versions and downloads them. And that's not a bad behavior, but it's one that we would want to empower users to have control over. And in order to do that, we'll need to establish a couple of release channels, kind of a stable and an edge, if you will. At least I think that's what's proposed in the document. And so I'm giving comment to help characterize kind of the state of where things are, and to potentially plant seeds in Simon's mind and Adina's mind about things they might want to tackle.
Yeah, you definitely need to have this separately, because, for instance, the component I'm working for, there is first, the security, which are validating and so on, and then another department and so on. But that's the thing. Sometimes they are using whatever version which doesn't have whatever security bridge or which one is covered. So everything has to be approved before automatically update. So there are no automatic updates, and especially with everything that is related to the networking stuff and so on, it's even worse. There are more layers of approving stuff. So if it says today, yes, it's going, it's gonna take sometimes. So yeah, and the edge is for in the development when what you have is not enough or something like that. But yeah, we need that.
Yeah.
I still need to get familiar with things and so on, but we definitely need that.
I totally agree. Yeah, you have to watch when Adina, when you have big shoulders, you have to watch out because then asks like this get pushed your way. So anyway, so we only have 8 more minutes left. Kush did have he's been pretty busy this week making a mess of issues and PRs and submitting a bunch of them. Kush, I know you've got a couple of things that are maybe in a demonstrable state. If you want to share your command line, let's get a demo in.
Is it visible?
Not for me.
It should be now.
There it is.
So I was working on error checking improvement in the perf subcommand of mesheryctl. So like previously the perf command was having a test name as a required field, but now I have made it optional field, and if the user will not provide a test name field, the command will automatically use a random name, which you can see over here. Like as you can see, test name not provided using random test name. And before there were issues like if a URL was unreachable, the test was still showing the success message. So I have just captured the error. Like currently I have used an error 127.0.0.1, which is not reachable or not on my server. So if I will run, it will show me failed to make request to URL. We can even capture what was the URL, which is the pending work on it. And also there are multiple scopes of improvement in this command. Like if I will change the load generator to any random number or any random string ABC, it will not show me an exact error, rather it will show me failed to make request to URL. So we can improve over there, and that's it for now.
Kush, do you mind, since this is probably the last topic of the meeting, maybe a couple of questions for you about the current behavior of mesheryctl perf. If you, just to confirm, I think some of this has been addressed, but if you were to run just mesheryctl perf with no other flags, are we giving the user an example call? Yeah, this is, you know, in my mind, and certainly everyone else chime in, and just for context, if you're familiar with the user interface inside of Meshery to run a performance test, to generate load, hit an endpoint, and then do statistical analysis on how responsive that endpoint was, what Kush is demoing is that same ability, but doing it from the command line. And to do so, there will be 2 ways in which we expect people to do this. One is to specify a series of flags, which in my mind kind of stinks. The other way to do it will be, and so Kush, the thing I was wanted to make sure that was done is, if they just run mesheryctl perf, if we could give them a usage example, I think that would be very helpful. We might want to print out the help, maybe, or maybe better than that, a usage example.
We can show them the output of the help and also show them a usage example, like how should you use the command, or an example command, like there was a issue opened about it, like usage of perf command. So we can just give an example command like you can use like this.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, this is why I'm confused, because I think Anand was just noting that Gungeon is working on that behavior. And yeah, I guess I couldn't recall if we had completed it or not. But yeah, you're right. So then just in 2 minutes on this, just for kind of context about Meshery's performance testing, is that one of the projects within the community is this service mesh performance specification. So as Kush was demonstrating the fact that you can run a mesheryctl perf and specify any number of flags, those flags would specify like what endpoint, what URL do you want to test, how much load do you want to generate, for how long, a bunch of just parameters about how you want to run that performance test. Our hope is that most of the time that people are doing that, they're doing something more like a mesheryctl perf -f, that they're just pointing to a file, a YAML file that captures all of those parameters. So it's a bit easier to not have to type it all in. And that YAML file, the format of that would be one and the same of this service mesh performance specification. And it's here. This is based on some work that's done collaboratively with Google, with the Istio performance lead for that project. It's an incomplete spec, so it hasn't reached a 1.0. It certainly hasn't done that. We need to start versioning it. When you're in Meshery, it's this same format that if you're, and this is what this small example here is about, is that when you're using Meshery and you go to run a performance test, you can choose that, download it, and when it downloads, it'll open up in that same file format, the SMPS format, if you will. It's incomplete though. There's more work to be done because there's more parameters to account for. So context for that command, context for something else that hopefully a number of you might make a mark on and or make your name on. This is probably one of the deep areas that people will know of Meshery for, about service performance management. And ultimately that specification, the service mesh performance specification, I know we've talked about it any number of times in this call, but there's an intention to create a commonly referenced index, a mesh dex, if you will, so that people can easily compare the performance of their service mesh either to someone else's service mesh or the performance of their service mesh over time as they start running it from day 0 and run it for a year or however long. Anyway, good. So context. Any other thoughts that anyone else has? Anything else anyone wants to share before we sign off for today?
Lee, can you hear me right?
Yep.
Lee, I think we should go for one separate meeting for our release CI/CD system. In every meeting, we can do that, or separately for the individuals who take parts on that. And for that meeting, we just discuss about that things. I think that's a central place. If we things get going well in that direction, I think moving forward is a less complication going forward.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. It's kind of hard to get much in-depth work done like on this community call because it's intentionally broad and is supposed to cover a lot of things. That's actually thanks for calling that out, Simon. That's actually the last note in today's meeting, which is that we're at a point by which there's enough engineering muscle with all of the contributors here that there's enough significant and in-depth things to discuss that we essentially need to establish a couple of work streams or a couple of working groups. And for the thing you just said, I think if we don't get a work stream established specifically for infrastructure concerns about the project, for about like CI and CD, or not CD, but for CI and continuous integration testing and the like, if for nothing else, this next coming Wednesday, that development call, that we could set aside the agenda on that call, certainly to cover this in depth. And if that didn't really work, then yeah, let's on Slack or what have you, if you would solicit interest from those that are interested in the topic, and then yeah, let's get its own calendar item on the community calendar and its own time setup so we can advance the topic.
I think, Lee, I just thinking about if we couldn't do in the Wednesday or Friday meeting, so I can separately discuss with a person that who are interested in that kind of a domain. So we could do rather than in everybody in that meeting, we could do that person that are very holistic about this and passionate about CI/CD system, DevOps system, infrastructure, and it is cloud native stuff. So I think we could do a separate meeting with just discussing about how we can build infrastructure, CI/CD system deployments. I think moving forward, we have to do that because I think this is a cornerstone of our project. If we done something right there, I think moving forward, we have less complication moving forward. I think I definitely do on my side and engaging with other people's. And I think moving forward, I think I may set this meeting.
Nice. Okay, very good. I've captured it down. It sounds like we are ready for that then. Simon, I'll work with you to try to make sure that we've got a Zoom or a Google Meet, and that we've got time on the calendar. Simon, if you would maybe take the reins in terms of soliciting interest within the community about those that would want to participate in that ongoing work stream, that would be great.
Okay, Lee, I definitely do that. And also going forward some plans there and moving forward some capturing some demos there that we done, because when we show something, a demo, real life demo, so they can understand the concept easily. So in this week, I try to done some demos there, and I've also engaged some peoples on that kind of thing.
Awesome. That's good. Oh, you got a bunch of people sounding off already. So this is great. Perfect. Okay. We have such a nasty habit of spilling over on the time. I want to try to end now if we can, and encourage everyone to sound off in terms of like what might work timing wise and day wise for those that are interested, and let's make it happen. Let's make it happen this coming week. Very good. All right. Happy Friday, everyone. This has been nice. Good.
Happy Friday. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Sorry for too much. Sorry for that.
No. All right. Fair enough. See you, everyone. Bye, guys.